Welcome to Unfiltered, Pixel Pro Audio's weekly show. Today we're going to discuss what interface you should buy. Hello, welcome back around the drum. I'm Tay, this is David, and that's Jay. Today we're going to be going over how to decide on an interface if you're a beginner, if you're someone that's looking to start out, but we want to give you a generic overview of what an interface is. So an interface, like some of these we have here, are the connection between analog and digital signal. This takes the analog signal that you have from a microphone or a guitar or whatever, and it translates it into digital code, and it sends it to your computer. So on your computer, you have a DAW, a digital audio workspace. Workstation. Whoa! And that, the digital signal goes into there, and then that's where you can record and manipulate it from there. So this is like the translator between analog to digital. So
Rosetta Stone, if you will.
Yes, a Rosetta Stone. That's a... yeah. Okay, so audio interfaces, they all kind of have the same style of features on them, but I wanted to ask you guys, can you tell me what is on an audio interface?
Yeah, so he doesn't want to talk about this. So
I do want to talk about this, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Okay, well, there are two main parts to an audio interface, and the first one is the preamp, and that's this connection right here in the back. Hopefully we can get some B-roll. And that is where you plug in the microphone or a line level signal. And that's what's going to amplify the signal to make it usable. The signal right off the microphone is super quiet, super noisy, so you need something to clean that up and bring it to a usable level.
Okay.
After it's at line level, which is 1.228 volts, not that anyone needs to know that ever. I'm just a nerd.
Well, some people need to or want to.
Sure.
1.21 gigawatts?
1.228 volts.
Okay.
That's line level.
Yes.
Okay.
Once it's at line level, it can be converted into digital audio. So that's the second part of an audio interface. Can't see it, but there's chips inside of here that convert the sound wave into a picture of a sound wave that your computer can read and recognize and manipulate afterward.
Okay.
So that's the two main parts of an interface.
And
And then it does it all over again on the way out.
Right. You've got your monitoring section that takes that digital picture of it and then converts it back into a real sound wave that can come out of your speakers and headphones.
so usually on an interface, there's outputs then.
Yep.
And those, like you just said, go to your speakers or wherever you want to
Yeah, like
hear
on a
them.
small interface like this, it's going to go to your speakers. On bigger interfaces like the Scarlett 18i20 that we have here, you could send that to a console or something and mix. You could, mix the individual parts on a console,
Okay.
or you can just mix them out of two outputs and send them to your speakers. It's however you want to do it with an interface like this.
I also see on there headphone, monitoring a jack to put headphones on. Is that just so you can hear while you record or after?
Both.
Okay. Yeah, it's whatever you want to do. Some people like to mix and record with headphones. Some people like to use monitors, or some people, usually when you're tracking, you want to use headphones. And again, when you're choosing an interface, that's a question you want to ask yourself is one mix okay? If you're just recording yourself, one mix is obviously okay. But if you have a bigger interface like this where you're going to record a band, then you might want to be able to have different types of mixes. And that's why, with one of these, you can set up different mixes because it has two headphone ports. So you can set up a mix for, the drummer and then another one for the vocalist. And
Okay.
if the vocalist wants to hear more of them, they always do.
Classic.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, they can do that. So, that's another thing to consider when you're buying an interface.
Okay, on the back of these, I see a connection, an interface connection. So I guess talk to me about the different kinds of that and maybe where we're at today with technology and maybe where we're going.
Okay.
As far as
So everything right now is USB-C. I would say that's where everything is headed right now.
Yeah.
USB-C, because that USB-C kind of bridges the divide. For the longest time we've had USB and FireWire, and then came Thunderbolt, which is a FireWire. It's another version of FireWire.
Okay.
And USB-C bridges the divide. It does both. So you can with most USB-C connections, you can use USB, or if you have cable converters, you can do FireWire even, or regular old Thunderbolt. They call it. I believe they call it Thunderbolt 3 is what USB-C is. So, there's all these different versions of 3.1.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. So for what for the average user, it's what connection do you have on your computer?
Right.
And most modern computers are going to have USB-C connectors
Or USB 2.0.
or USB 2.0.
And that's what these I can see here have those older ones, 2.0, right?
Right.
Yes,
So all of these are 2.0, but PreSonus has a new line that has the USB-C, and
So does Focusrite.
And Focusrite does too. The Clarett line they call that the Clarett USB line.
Okay. And then Audient.
Audient just came out with the ID44 last year, and that's got USB-C on it.
Okay. So most people out there are going to have a computer or a laptop that has one of these connections. Most likely it's going to be USB. And I think FireWire is being phased out.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing is, people might want to know why. Why are there all these different versions? And it really just comes down to computer technology and how it's changed and evolved and gotten better. And so USB 2 is fairly slow. And the reason people would make FireWire interfaces is because you could do a lot more channels. And not slow, but it doesn't have the bandwidth as FireWire does. And then Thunderbolt had a lot more bandwidth compared to FireWire. And then USB-C has even more bandwidth. So you can do tons and tons of channels through a USB-C connection.
Okay.
And if you've ever looked at, and I don't know if you can find a picture of this, but if you've ever looked at a USB-C connector and taken the sleeve off, there's a bazillion wires inside this tiny little connection.
No, I never.
Which is the thing that worries me the most about USB-C is that there are so many little connections inside this tiny connector, and that worries me when you're talking about expensive interfaces, wiggling it and then things breaking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was kind of those are my questions about the physical aspects of the interface.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna present a question to you. I walk into our store and I see our big wall of interfaces, and we run the gamut, and we kind of brought up a few of them here today to show you. When I come in and I'm looking for an interface, how do I decide which one to get?
Well, when this happens, people typically tell me they want to record, and let's try this. Why don't you ask me questions about something you're trying to record, and then I'll help you find the right interface.
Okay, so I want to record some vocals. I want to sing.
Okay.
So let's start there. I want to do that. I think I want to record a guitar. Maybe plug a keyboard in.
Okay. So are you looking for something that just has the one mic channel, or are you looking to do this all at one time?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably one at a time.
Okay. And with the keyboard, are you going to record that in mono, or are you going to want a stereo feed?
I don't know what that means.
Okay. That's fair.
Are you a human being or a cat?
Well, I'm just trying to say,
and a lot of people don't, and that's totally understandable. So a mono feed would just be all of the notes are heard equally through this one cable. But if you plug two in, then the higher notes are going to be more present on. I'm trying to think of user perspective.
Stereo versus mono, right?
Yeah. So the left would have the lower notes. The higher notes would be more present on
you're saying
the right.
I get what you're saying. But it could just be that it's a stereo sample. It might not be that way. It could be that there's reverb on it or something.
Yeah.
Depending on the keyboard.
Yeah.
So it's basically stereo versus mono. And yes, that's typically how it's set up is it's, you get a little bit of left and right, and the higher notes are here and the lower notes are here.
Right.
Okay. Well, so then what's the difference between these two here in front of us now, for what I want to use?
Well, for what you're doing, I would not recommend the 18-20 because that's got a lot of channels, and I don't want to try to sell you something that you're not going to use.
Okay. Overkill.
At that point, you might as well try to get something smaller that's high quality.
Okay.
Doesn't have as many channels, so you can spend a bit more.
So does your keyboard have two outputs or one?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm asking you. Does your keyboard have two outputs or one?
It has one.
Okay, so
Okay.
then you need just one.
Yeah.
Okay. So what if I want to record, my kid singing and me playing the keyboard?
Okay.
So now I need something else?
Not necessarily. So both of these interfaces here have two inputs. This Audient one has one mic input, and on the front it's got a DI input.
Okay.
And you can plug your keyboard into that. That's actually got a JFET DI, and it sounds really good. It sounds like it's going through a tube stage.
Okay.
So that would actually make your keyboard sound even better. And it's got a really high quality console preamp in that mic input.
Okay.
So that could be a really good option.
What if I don't have a microphone? What do I need for that? Like, do I need something cheap, or do I just need,
Well, it really depends on what your budget is. If you go with something like the i2, they have a studio package that has everything you need to get started.
okay.
Comes with a microphone, headphones, all the cables you need, and the software you need to record.
Okay. So that's like an all-in-one thing where
Right, so
I can just get it
packages
done.
are an option, and PreSonus has a good package, and Focusrite also has a really good package.
Yeah.
Focusrite has two. I think PreSonus has a couple different
Yeah.
packages too, like that.
Okay.
Yep.
So it all boils down to what I want to do with it. If it's one at a time or grouping things or recording the same multiple things at the same time.
That's half of it, and the other half is your budget. How much
yeah.
do you want to spend? Typically, the more you spend, the higher quality you're going to get.
Okay. And but I could always buy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to touch your leg. I touched his leg, and he's like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
I could always purchase something smaller, and then if I graduate to the next level or want to get, I could always upgrade later.
Definitely. That's what a lot of people do. They start off with like the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and then they like those preamps, so they want to get the 18920 then.
Right. And for me, like when you're talking about that, like if you've got the budget to go a little bit more expensive, and you think you might want to record drums in the future, or you think you might want to record more things in the future, I like the option of going with something that's got an optical input so that you can add like a Scarlett Octopre or something onto it later on, which if you add if it has that ADAT connection, the light pipe connection on the back, you can add that Scarlett Octopre and get 8 more mic preamps and converters sent directly into your DAW through that. Like the 18i20 does that. The
Audient ID44.
ID44 does that.
14 and the 22 do that too.
14 and the 22. And
Okay.
so there are a lot of options there where they're not that much more expensive than the entry-level interfaces, and it gives you that expandability in the future if you think you might want to go further with it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I don't think I have any more questions about that. So, I mean, I think if our viewers have any questions, if you would please, excuse me, leave them in the comments. Ask us. We're just trying to get you thinking about what you would need for an interface, or if you're brand new to this, or you're just looking to start. These are some great options for you, and you can always go bigger later if you need to be. But there's always options for you for budget interfaces. And like Jay was saying, if you're already into it and you know what you're kind of doing, you can go a little bit higher and get that expandability options too.
Yep, that's why I went with the ID40. I mean, that's why I went with the ID44 is because I know that I want to do drums in the future.
Yeah, I went with the ID44 for a lot of reasons, like the really good preamps, the scroll control, but it also has 16 ADAT I/O, and
I know. Yeah, so it's pretty much anything you want to do in the future.
Yeah. And it's mobile,
Yeah.
so that's
Okay.
all in one.
All right, we got some user questions that came in about this topic too, so I'm going to go to that, and then we can answer them directly. First, from Angry Monkey, he asks, or she asks, iPad or Android tablet? What would you recommend for a portable recording platform?
I'm going to say just my experience with Android has been very troubled. And that's only because there are so many different versions of those operating systems and phones and devices. It's almost impossible to say, yes, that something is going to work for you, because we have had so many problems with things not working just because there's a million different specs and a million different things going on. Even from one Samsung phone to the next, it's like... So for me, to play it safe, if you have the option, is I'm going to go iOS. I mean, if you have an iPad, that's probably the best way to do it if you're going to do a portable solution.
Okay.
I think that I mean, with an iPad, you essentially could run your whole studio off of that. You can do what did we say, David? You could do.
It depends on the app, but IK Multimedia has Waves or Wave Machine, and that can do up to 24 channels at a time and 48 channels playback.
Right. So 24 inputs, probably 12 and 12, 12 in, 12 out, or a mixture. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, you can do a lot. You can record a band on an iPad.
Yeah.
And you can do the whole mix and everything right in there. So for me, that's where I would go. You know, like you can use the Scarlett line with an iPad. They don't officially support it, I think, because it's always changing, and there are things you have to do to use these with that. Like you have to hook it up to a PC first and set the I/O up, how you're going to do the inputs and outputs. But still, it's crazy that you can record a full band on an iPad and have professional quality recording right there. It's amazing.
And you do need the Apple camera connection kit to do that.
Yeah.
You can't just do it right out of the box, but I mean, that can't be expensive.
Yeah, they're
right?
not expensive.
Okay.
So
it might,
$30 or something.
It might take someone just a little bit to research this and figure out what they need or that sort of thing.
So my thoughts on this are I don't know what the editing capabilities are, but for me, doing like a lot of commercial rock and metal and type stuff, a lot of my studio time is spent editing. So I would just recommend a laptop with good specs.
Yep.
That would be my suggestion, hands down.
Okay. But people can dabble in this if they already have an iPad,
Right.
And they want to just try it out, see what happens.
Right. And if you only need 2 channels at a time, the PreSonus i1 and i2 have a device link that you can plug right into an iPad with.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Marcus from Pennsylvania. He asks, I've had my interface for quite a few years and nothing has made me want to upgrade. Where do you see interface technology going in the future, and are there things on the horizon that I should wait for, or is now a good time to upgrade?
I would say it depends what you're doing and if you need to upgrade or not.
Well, I think that the interface market has matured a lot. You know, for a lot of years there were a lot of big advancements from 16-bit to 24-bit, and then from 48 to 96 kilohertz, 96 to 196, 92. Sorry, yes, 192 kilohertz, and a lot of improvements where a lot of the early interfaces didn't even have mic preamps in them. They were just line devices. So I think it depends on how old your device is. But in terms of what's coming, I don't see a lot that's going to change things in a big way. Even if they go to 32-bit, which I don't think they're going to. But if the manufacturers go to 32-bit, I don't think it's something that the average user is going to be able to hear. It's kind of like going from a 4K TV to an 8K TV. The numbers are so astronomical already in terms of what's being captured by modern analog to digital converters. It's just not going to make a big difference. So I think it is like if you've got an old interface that's a little crusty, say you're at a 48 kilohertz interface, I'd upgrade now.
Okay.
If you're at a 96 kilohertz upgrade or interface, I think it really depends if there's anything about it that you don't like. I think now is actually probably a pretty good time because the prices on everything have come down and it's a mature market.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing a lot of is interfaces really maturing. Like the Audient line, the ID44 is like, we all use that for a reason. It's a great interface, and Focusrite has their Red series and the Clarett line, and there's a lot of really good stuff out there right now. Personally, I don't really care about the sample rate. I record at 44.1 anyway.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm at 88.2.
Yeah, I was doing that for a while, but I just didn't notice a big enough difference to keep doing it. I figured I'd save the hard drive space.
All right.
Yeah.
So kind of it boils down to what do you have? Do you want to do anything additional to what you're currently doing? With more inputs, like upgrading because of that, or I think we all chose the ID44 because it has expandability options to it. So
yeah,
that
I would like to
another
see
reason.
Focusrite come out with something like that. That
Sure.
is that form factor where it's got a control surface on top and monitor controller. That's another reason I like the ID44
Right.
is because you can run 2 sets of speakers off that thing.
Yep.
It's a monitor controller. It's
I do that.
It's just such a great hub.
Yeah.
I have my monitor section and then my headphone amp coming out of the back. So that's another reason to upgrade now. If you see quality of life issues that like some interfaces are offering more than others, that's also a good time to do it. So those are all factors in considering that. So
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Marcus and Angry Monkey, for those questions. Great. Well, leave us comments below if you have any questions about this, but we'll be back around the drum with some more instructional videos later.
So how are you doing this?
How are you doing this? Okay.
It's good.
Cool.
It's funny. You should watch it.
How you should...
That's not straight.
Yeah, I can't tell from my angle.
I got it.
Welcome to...
Needs versus wants. Do you know what they are? The difference is?
getting
Needs,
there.
wants. Do you know the difference?
Want?
Thought you were prepared. I don't know. Maybe not.
In?
Tro.
Do that like this. I'll be like, in your face.